This video is part 3 of the lecture videos for week 2 of the course Career and Employment Resources. If you've not already watched parts 1 and 2, please do go and watch those first, and then you can come back to this third video when you have time. In this video, I'm going to have a look in more depth at the stage, Who Am I? And really explore just a bit more fully what you might be doing, what you'd be exploring in this stage. And then in particular, we are going to look at some of the resources that you might use, just some suggested resources you might use to help clients in this particular stage. So remember that for the Who Am I stage, that these are all important points, and you've seen these in previous weeks when we looked at the Who Am I section of the model. And just to remind you, we would explore, for example, aptitudes, what the client seems to have natural abilities for, achievements, things that they've accomplished, interests that they may have, their values, personality, skills. There could be lots of different ways to explore all of these things. You can, of course, use assessment tools to measure some of these things, but you can also use other approaches like narrative counseling, asking clients, for example, to tell you stories about things that they've achieved that they are, most proud of. Those kinds of stories can really help you then to go on to identify other aspects, such as the skills that seem to stand out, what it suggests about the client's personality, and so on. Resources that you might use to explore in the Who Am I stage could include assessment tools, and these can be informal tools. Now, some of these you would have been exposed to in the informal assessments course or some of the other courses in the program, but more informal types of tools include things like card sorts. There's a system out there called Who Am I booklets, and then more formal types of tools. For example, there's something called the COP system, GATB. Anything that is, for example, timed abilities tests, that would all fall under formal assessment tools. And there can also be online assessment tools and old-fashioned paper and pencil tools. So the Holland Codes, for example, can be done both online and as also a paper and pencil tool. Another approach could be doing storytelling or narrative approaches, searching for dependable strengths. And that's just to name a few of different ways that you can get at Who Am I information with the client. One thing I really want to emphasize here, and I really can't emphasize it enough, is how important it is that you do not influence clients towards or away from any occupation. You can share lots of information with them, but you must do so in an objective way. And what your role really is to do through the Who Am I phase is to identify general themes that seem to emerge in the information, and then let the client determine what occupations they want to explore when you go on to the what's out there stage. It's important to remember that there are lots of examples of people who have succeeded in fields despite predictions by others that they didn't have the ability. So I'm giving away my age here a little bit, but for example, there was a very famous singer a number of years ago named Elvis Presley in the 50s and 60s. And when he was first trying to break in the field, he was a truck driver. When he was first trying to break into the field, he went for auditions, and some of the people that saw him perform said, "You don't have what it takes, go back to driving a truck." And then he went on to be very, very successful in the field. So really important that you do not ever discourage a client away from pursuing an occupation, whatever you might think of their abilities. The other part of this that's important is that you can share information with clients about occupations, but you really must do so in an objective way. So if the idea of being an accountant for you is just repulsive, you just can't imagine doing that work, it wouldn't be something that would interest you, then, if that occupation seems to be suggested by the client's results in the Who Am I stage, or they even articulate it, that you need to be very careful if you think that any occupation is not interesting work or it's not good work. that's your opinion. It's not, it's really, really important from an ethical perspective that you be very careful with the tone of your voice, the facial expression that you demonstrate. So you can't see my face right now, but if you're showing them the results and you kind of, scrunch your face up a little bit, say, well, I guess this kind of shows that you might want to be an accountant. And if you, say it in that tone of voice and you use the kind of facial expression I'm showing right now, that's going to communicate clearly to the client that you really don't think that's a very good choice of occupation. So we don't want to ever communicate that to a client. Whatever occupation they're interested in, our obligation is to help them pursue and explore that in a very objective manner without influencing them one way or another. Really important, going back to some of those fundamental principles we've talked about all through the program, is to remember that clients are experts on themselves. And again, lots of examples of people who've succeeded in fields, even though others said they didn't have the ability. There are examples of people who get into a field and succeed, even though at the time they tried to enter it, there weren't great job prospects, but they were very determined. So there are lots of other factors that can influence whether someone gets into an occupation and succeeds. And our role really is just to guide them through this process and not influence them, share information that we have available, but not influence them in one way or another, and just support and empower them as they make their own choices. Clients may sometimes want you to tell them what to do, and you need to try and refrain from that. We don't want to take that level of responsibility. If you tell a client what to do and they take your advice and they do it and it doesn't turn out very well, they can come back to you and say, hey, I did what you said, and I bombed or I crashed in this program. So all we really want to do is empower clients to make their choices and their decisions. And we want them to come away from the experience with us feeling empowered that, they are clear about the direction that they have chosen for themselves. And the upside of that also is that if the need comes up again at some time in the future for them to make another career choice, that they've developed some of the skills and some of the knowledge. They already understand what resources to look at, and they know what steps they need to take to try and make a choice or a new decision. They may still need to come back and get help from a career and employment counselor, but they're familiar with the process and may even be able to do some of that work themselves. Just breaking the who am I down even a little bit further, we've already talked about, most of these things, skills and abilities and personality and so on. We also want to think about, the work experience that they have, their preferred work environments and the type of people they want to work with, their lifestyle. All of that fits with who am I. We want to think then about within who am I, what kind of resources we can provide to clients. And these can be really divided into a couple of different categories. So first of all, as I've talked about, we have self-assessment tools, and those can be online or digital, and this can even refer to self-assessment tools or processes. And most of them are online and digital today, but there are still a few old-fashioned print publications. And once I think the pandemic has settled down a little bit and we're able to go back into working with clients face-to-face, that you will still be able to make use of some of those print publications as well. There are some tools out there that are called Level B, and those require counselor expertise. So that includes standardized tests. And these are the types of things that you need to have specific training for in order to administer these and interpret them. So there are some tools that you can take specialized training in. Some of them might include, for example, the COP system, the personality dimensions tool. There are just a whole list of them out there that you could explore. The Myers-Briggs type indicator. A lot of those tools should be accompanied by counselor interpretation and counselor expertise. We do not want clients to go out there and try these tools and not really understand what they mean and what the results mean for them. And then they may misinterpret some of that information and not use it correctly. I want to show you some examples of Who Am I resources that some of these you may be familiar with. These are some online resources. There are literally thousands of resources out there that could fit within this category. And I'm not going to go through all of these individually. Part of your homework this week is to explore these links. Some of them you're already familiar with, for example, the Holland Codes assessment. And some of these you may have never looked at before. The Keirsey tool is very good. 16 Personalities is very good. The Alberta website has some excellent resources there as well. So all of these are just examples of Who Am I tools. And I'm going to ask you as part of your homework this week, and I've posted all of these links on the week 2 syllabus, to go through each one of these links and try as many of them as you can as time permits. And you do need to get to know these websites. And I'll talk in a little bit about the importance of starting to compile a list of the websites. So these are all ones that I think are pretty good, and I wouldn't hesitate to use these myself out in the field if I were working with clients. Then, of course, we have something like old-fashioned books. These are 3 that I have in my own personal library, and they're all very good. They're all related to Who Am I? You know, just read the titles. Color Savvy, helping you to achieve success in your work life. This is actually about personality dimensions. And although it may be the title, How to Achieve Success, is a little bit misleading, it really is about identifying your personality style. And the same with career tests and career match. These are all things that clients could pick up any one of these books and do some of the tools, and it will help them to get a deeper sense of who they are and try out some of the different assessments. So this is just a very, very small sample. Again, there are literally thousands of books out there, and you want to be very careful about which ones you pick and which ones you decide to use. And in the next video lecture, as part of this series, I'm going to give you a little model on how to actually assess different tools, as well as assessing different resources. So again, it's just a very small sample, not even the tip of the iceberg, but gives you some idea of what's available. There are lots and lots of very, very good Who Am I books out there. So one thing that I want to mention at this point is that you do need to start compiling a list of websites and other resources that you think are good resources to share with clients in the field. You are going to need to have that list compiled as a resource in the 3 different categories. So each week you're going to be looking at resources under each of the 3 different categories and stages in the career life planning model. And what you need to do is to compile a list of resources that fit with each stage of the model. You will need this document when it comes time to do your case study later in the course, and you're going to definitely need it when it comes time to do the final test for the course in the last week, because you're going to be asked questions about, what's this client's stage, and if you think they're in this stage, can you recommend, based on their stage, what are 3 resources that you could suggest that would help them in this stage? So very important that this week you begin compiling your list of resources. And so with the Who Am I stage, you would want to have all of these, and you should have checked them out so that you know that you can actually recommend them to clients. You would take all of these and explore them, and then put them on that list, perhaps with a very, very brief description about what each one offers, so that when you're working with the case studies or you are doing the final test, that you are familiar with these resources and you know that they fit with the Who Am I stage. And the same with these books. These could be ones that you put on the list. I will admit that for the most part these days we're doing almost everything online. So if you want to just compile a list of websites, that's perfectly fine. If you want to expand it to also include other resources, you can do that as well. Having this list can also help you when you're working your practicum and when you're working out in the field, because you never know when one of your colleagues or your manager might say, do you know of any good websites we can recommend for clients to do online assessments? And you will have your list right there and say, well, as a matter of fact, I know about this Holland Codes assessment tool. It's very good. It's quick and easy to do. So those are the kinds of things that you want to be able to share with your colleagues, and you're going to look very clever because you have taken the time to compile your list and that you have it accessible. So I'm going to stop here, and this will be the third part of our video lecture for this week. There'll be one more after this. And so take a little break, and when you're ready, please go on to the final video.